I didn't believe in haunted houses. Not ghosts. Not spirits. Not anything paranormal. At least, I didn't before I moved into the house on Hollow Creek Road. The place was cheap. Suspiciously cheap. 3 bedrooms. 2 floors. Big backyard. Quiet neighborhood just outside town. And the price was less than half of what houses around it normally sold for. At first I assumed something was wrong with the structure. Foundation issues. Water damage. Maybe mold. But the inspection report came back completely clean. That should have been the first warning. The real estate agent avoided eye contact when I asked why the house had been on the market for so long. Some buyers just changed their minds, she said quickly. I didn't push further. Looking back now, I should have. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. I moved in with only the essentials. A mattress, a lamp, a small table, and a few boxes. The house still smelled like fresh paint and old wood. You know that hollow echo houses have when they're mostly empty? Every step sounded louder than it should. Every door creaked. But that's normal in older houses. At least that's what I told myself. Around midnight, I finally lay down on the mattress in the upstairs bedroom. The wind outside rattled the trees slightly. Branches scraped softly against the siding. It was the kind of quiet that should make you sleep better. Instead, it made me uneasy. Still, I eventually drifted off. And that's when I heard the first sound. Footsteps. Slow ones. Downstairs. At first I thought I was dreaming. But then I heard it again. Step. Then another. Step. The sound of someone walking slowly across the wooden floor of the living room. My eyes opened immediately. I sat up and listened. The house went silent again. Maybe it was the wood settling. Old houses do that sometimes. But then it happened again. Step. Step. Someone was definitely moving downstairs. My heart started beating faster. Maybe someone had broken in. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam of light shook slightly in my hand as I stepped into the hallway. Hello? I called. No answer. The staircase creaked under my feet as I walked down. The beam of light scanned across the living room. Empty. The front door was still locked. The windows were closed. No one was there. I stood there for a long moment, listening. Nothing. Finally, I convinced myself it had just been the house settling. Embarrassed, I walked back upstairs. But the moment I reached the top step, I heard something behind me. A whisper. Very soft. So quiet I almost missed it. Hello. I spun around. The staircase behind me was empty. The living room was dark and still. No one there. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I met the neighbor. An older man watering his lawn across the street. He watched me for a moment before walking over. You the new owner? He asked. Yeah. He nodded slowly. You move in alone? Yeah, I said again. Something in his expression changed slightly. Like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure if he should. Finally he spoke. You hear anything last night? My stomach tightened. What do you mean? He studied my face carefully. Then he gave a small shrug. Old houses make noises. That was the second warning. That evening I started unpacking. Most of the house was still empty. The silence felt heavier after sunset. Around 9 p.m. I was sitting in the living room assembling a shelf when something strange happened. The lights flickered. Just once. Then again. I looked up at the ceiling light. Great, I muttered. Electrical problems. But the inspection report had said the wiring was new. The lights flickered one more time. Then they went out completely. The room fell into darkness. Only the faint blue glow of my phone screen lit the room. I walked to the breaker box in the hallway. But when I opened it, every switch was still on. I stood there confused. Then suddenly, the lights came back. Bright. Too bright. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The front door was open. Just a few inches. I was absolutely sure I had locked it. Slowly, I walked toward it. The night air slipped into the house through the gap. Cold. Quiet. I pushed the door closed and locked it again. But when I turned around, something in the living room had changed. The chair I had been sitting on earlier. was no longer facing the table. It was facing the hallway. Facing me. I stared at it for several seconds. My brain tried to explain it. Maybe I had turned it without realizing. Maybe it had shifted when I stood up. But deep down I knew something was wrong. Very wrong. Because as I watched the chair, it moved, just slightly. A slow scraping sound echoed across the wooden floor, like someone invisible had just pulled it an inch closer. I froze. The room suddenly felt colder. Then I heard the whisper again. Closer this time. Right behind me. "You're in my house." I spun around so fast I nearly fell. The hallway was empty, but I could feel it. Something was standing there, watching, waiting, and that's when I realized something terrifying. The house on Hollow Creek Road had never been empty. Daniel didn't believe in ghosts. At least, that's what he kept telling himself. But the second night in the house made that belief feel weaker than ever. The first night had been strange, yes. Footsteps. Doors moving. But old houses made noise. That's what Daniel told his wife, Laura. That's what he told their daughter, Emily. And that's what he tried to tell himself. That night, rain fell softly against the windows. The old wooden house creaked as wind pushed against the walls. Emily had gone to bed early. Laura was in the kitchen unpacking dishes. Daniel stood in the living room looking at the staircase. It was old, dark. The light at the top flickered. "Daniel," Laura called from the kitchen. "Yeah? Did you leave the attic light on?" Daniel frowned. "No." Laura stepped into the hallway. "The attic light is on." Daniel looked up the staircase. At the very top was the small attic door. And under it, a thin line of yellow light. "That's weird," Daniel said. "We haven't even opened the attic yet." Laura folded her arms. "Maybe the previous owners forgot." Daniel grabbed a flashlight. "I'll check it." Laura immediately shook her head. "At night?" Daniel laughed. "It's just an attic." But as he stepped onto the first stair, the house creaked loudly, the kind of sound old houses make when they move. Except, this one sounded like something was shifting above him. Step, step, step. The stairs groaned with every movement. The hallway upstairs felt colder than the rest of the house. Daniel noticed that immediately, cold enough that he could see his breath. "That's strange," he muttered. Then he reached the attic ladder. The small wooden door above was slightly open. The yellow light inside flickered. Daniel slowly pushed it open. The attic smelled like dust, old wood, and something else, something rotten. Boxes were stacked everywhere, old furniture covered with sheets. But the strangest thing was the light. There was no light bulb. Yet the attic was glowing faintly. Like a weak yellow glow was filling the room. Daniel frowned. "Hello?" Silence. Then, creak. Something moved behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. Just the dark staircase leading down. "Probably rats," Daniel whispered. He stepped further into the attic. His flashlight beam moved across the boxes. Old books. Broken chairs. A mirror. And then, he saw the footprints. On the dusty wooden floor. Fresh footprints. Bare feet. Small. Like a child's. Daniel froze. They started near the attic door. And walked across the room. Stopping in the corner, where the darkness looked thicker than the rest of the room. Daniel slowly walked toward that corner. His heart was beating faster now. Not fear. Just curiosity. Right? The flashlight beam moved across the wall. Nothing. Then the beam moved lower. And Daniel's blood turned cold. Written on the wall, in something dark, was a message. 3 words. "Don't stay here." Daniel stepped back. The flashlight shook in his hand. "Laura?" he called. No answer. He turned to go downstairs. But something stopped him. The footprints. They were still there. But now, they were moving. Slowly. Across the floor. Like someone invisible was walking. Right in front of him. Step. 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 The dust moved with each footprint. Daniel couldn't breathe. The footprints stopped. Only a few feet away. Right in front of him. And then, a whisper. Right next to his ear. Soft. Cold. A voice that sounded like a child. "Please, Daniel spun around. Nothing there. But the whisper came again. Please don't stay here. Suddenly, bang, the attic door slammed shut. The ladder folded up. Daniel ran to it. Laura, he pulled the handle. It wouldn't move. Laura, he shouted again. Then he heard something from behind him. Slow breathing. Not his. Another breath. Right behind him. Daniel turned slowly, and in the darkness of the attic, he saw the outline of a small figure, standing between the boxes, watching him, and then the figure whispered one last time. You shouldn't have come here. The attic light went out, and Daniel was left in complete darkness. Daniel didn't remember how long he had been trapped in the attic. Maybe a few minutes, maybe longer. When the light disappeared, the darkness became so thick it felt alive. The air was freezing. His flashlight had stopped working the moment the attic door slammed shut. No matter how many times he hit it against his palm, it wouldn't turn back on. Laura, he shouted again. His voice echoed against the wooden walls. No answer, only silence, and the sound of his own breathing. Then, a small sound. Behind him, a soft shuffle, like bare feet moving slowly across the dusty floor. Daniel froze. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure whatever was behind him could hear it. Hello? He said quietly. The shuffle stopped. Then a soft voice spoke from the darkness. Why did you come here? Daniel's skin crawled. The voice was the same one he had heard earlier. A child, a little girl. I live here now, Daniel said carefully. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the girl whispered something that made his stomach twist. No one lives here. Suddenly, clack, the attic door unlocked. The ladder dropped down with a loud wooden crash. Light from the hallway spilled into the attic. Daniel didn't wait. He ran down the ladder as fast as he could. When he reached the hallway, Laura rushed toward him. Daniel, what happened? He turned back to the attic. The room was completely dark again. No yellow glow. No footprints. Nothing. You were screaming, Laura said. I tried opening the attic but it was locked. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. I think someone was up there. Laura frowned. What do you mean someone? I heard a girl. Laura looked confused. A girl? Before Daniel could answer, a door creaked open down the hallway. Emily's bedroom. Their daughter stepped out slowly, rubbing her eyes. Daddy? Daniel immediately relaxed. It's okay, sweetheart. But Emily looked nervous. There's a girl in the hallway. The temperature dropped instantly. Daniel and Laura exchanged a look. What girl? Laura asked. Emily pointed down the hallway. At the end, Daniel slowly turned. The hallway stretched toward the bathroom. Dark, silent, empty. I don't see anyone, Daniel said. Emily shook her head. She was standing there. Daniel knelt beside her. What did she look like? Emily hesitated. Her clothes were wet. Daniel's stomach tightened. Wet? Emily nodded. And her hair was covering her face. Laura whispered, Daniel? But Emily wasn't finished. She asked me something. Daniel forced himself to stay calm. What did she ask? Emily looked toward the hallway again. Then she said the words slowly. She asked why we came back. Silence filled the hallway. Daniel's heart started beating faster again. Back? Laura asked. Emily nodded. She said this house doesn't let people leave. That night, none of them slept. Daniel sat in the living room with the lights on. Laura stayed beside him on the couch. Emily eventually fell asleep in Laura's arms. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then around 2:17 a.m. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks echoed from upstairs. Laura looked up immediately. Did you hear that? Daniel nodded. The knocks came again. This time louder. Knock, knock, knock. From Emily's bedroom door. But Emily was still asleep downstairs. Laura whispered, Daniel? Another knock. Harder now. Then, a child's voice from upstairs. Soft, weak. Mommy? Laura stood up instantly. That's Emily. But Daniel grabbed her arm. No. Laura looked confused. That's our daughter. Daniel shook his head slowly. Emily is right here. The voice upstairs called again. Mommy, please help me. Emily stirred in her sleep on the couch, still right beside them. Then the bedroom door upstairs opened slowly. They could hear it clearly. Creak. Footsteps walked into the hallway. Soft, bare, step, 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 and then something began walking down the staircase. But no one was there. Only the sound of feet touching wood. Step, step, step. The stairs creaked one by one, as if someone invisible was walking down toward them. Laura's hand tightened around Daniel's arm. Daniel? He couldn't move. The footsteps stopped halfway down the staircase. Then the child's voice whispered again. Right in the middle of the stairs. You shouldn't have come back. At that exact moment, Emily suddenly woke up on the couch, her eyes wide with fear. And she said something that made Daniel's blood turn cold. The girl says she died in our room. The house went completely silent. And from upstairs, something heavy began dragging across the floor. Daniel didn't sleep at all that night. Neither did Laura. They sat in the living room until sunrise, the lights on, Emily asleep between them. The footsteps on the stairs had eventually stopped. The dragging sound upstairs had disappeared sometime before morning. But none of them dared to go upstairs again. Not until daylight. At 7:30 a.m., sunlight finally filled the house. The morning made everything feel less terrifying. The staircase looked normal again. The hallway upstairs looked empty. The house looked like any other old house. But Daniel knew what he had heard, what he had seen, and most importantly, what Emily had said. The girl says she died in our room. Emily sat quietly at the kitchen table eating cereal. She looked calm, too calm. Daniel sat across from her. Emily, he said gently, can you tell me about the girl you saw? Emily looked down at her bowl. She's sad. Laura sat beside Daniel. What's her name? She asked. Emily shook her head. She didn't say. Daniel leaned forward. What did she look like? Emily thought for a moment. Her dress was white, and dirty, and her hair was long. Laura swallowed nervously. Did she say anything else? Emily nodded slowly. She said she couldn't leave the house. Daniel looked at Laura. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Emily said something else. Something much worse. She said other people are here too. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. What people? Emily whispered quietly. The ones in the walls. Laura stood up immediately. That's enough. She forced a smile at Emily. How about we watch cartoons for a while? Emily nodded and walked into the living room. The moment she was gone, Laura turned to Daniel. We need to leave. Daniel sighed. We just moved in. I don't care. Laura, that child saw a ghost. Daniel rubbed his face. Or she imagined one. Laura stared at him. And the footsteps? The voice? The attic? Daniel didn't answer. Because deep down, he knew she was right. Still, Daniel had one idea. We should check Emily's room. Laura hesitated. You want to go back upstairs? Daniel nodded. In daylight. Laura took a deep breath. Fine. The staircase creaked as they climbed. But now it sounded normal. Just old wood. Nothing more. When they reached the hallway, sunlight poured through the window at the end. Everything looked peaceful. Emily's bedroom door was half open. Daniel slowly pushed it wider. The room looked exactly the same as the night before. Toys on the floor, suitcase in the corner, pink blanket on the bed. Nothing unusual. Laura sighed in relief. See? But Daniel noticed something strange. The closet door. It was slightly open. He was sure they had closed it the night before. Daniel walked toward it. Laura stayed near the door. Daniel? It's fine. He slowly pulled the closet door open. Inside were only a few empty shelves. And the back wall. But something was scratched into the wood. Daniel leaned closer. His heart began to race. Carved into the wall were dozens of lines. Tallies. Like someone had been counting days. Under the tallies, there were words carved deeply into the wood. Day 47 inches. Then under that, it won't let me leave. Laura stepped closer. What is it? Daniel moved aside so she could see. Her face turned pale. Oh my God? But the worst part was below that. Another message. written in messy, uneven letters, as if carved by a child. If you hear me, don't answer. Laura backed away slowly. Daniel? But Daniel wasn't looking at the wall anymore. He was staring at the floor of the closet. At the wooden boards. One of them looked different. Slightly loose. Daniel knelt down. Daniel, don't. But he already grabbed the board and lifted it. Underneath was a small dark space. And inside that space was something wrapped in old cloth. Daniel slowly unwrapped it. Laura covered her mouth. Inside the cloth was a small object. A child's bracelet. Silver. Dirty with age. And engraved on the inside were 2 words. Lily 1987. Laura whispered, Daniel? And at that exact moment, a soft voice came from behind them. Right in the bedroom. A little girl's voice. Cold. Weak. And very close. Did you find it? Daniel slowly turned around. But the room was empty. Completely empty. Then the voice spoke again. This time from inside the closet. Right beside him. Now she knows you're here. The closet door suddenly slammed shut. And something began scratching from inside the walls. The closet door slammed so hard the entire room shook. Laura screamed. Daniel jumped backward, nearly falling over Emily's toy chest. Then, silence. The scratching inside the walls stopped. The room became completely still again. For a moment, neither of them moved. Daniel? Laura whispered. Her voice trembled. We're leaving. Daniel nodded quickly. Yes. But as he reached for the bedroom door, it slowly creaked shut on its own. Click. The handle locked. Laura rushed toward it and tried turning it. It wouldn't move. Daniel. He grabbed the handle too. Locked. From the outside. Then the scratching sound returned. This time louder. Inside the walls. All around them. Scratch. 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 Like dozens of fingernails dragging across wood. Laura covered her ears. What is that? Daniel tried to stay calm. Probably animals. But even as he said it, he knew that wasn't true. Animals didn't scratch in perfect rhythm. And they definitely didn't whisper. Because now the scratching was accompanied by voices. Faint. Broken. Like people speaking from far away. Daniel leaned closer to the wall. And heard something clearly. A whisper. Help us. Daniel stepped back immediately. Nope. Laura stared at him. What did it say? Daniel didn't answer. Then suddenly, a small knock came from inside the closet. Knock. 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 3 slow taps. Laura looked at Daniel. That's impossible. The closet door slowly creaked open. But no one touched it. The darkness inside the closet looked deeper than before. And inside that darkness, something moved. A small figure stepped out. Laura gasped. Daniel froze. Standing in the middle of Emily's bedroom was a little girl, about 7 years old. Her long dark hair covered part of her face. Her white dress was old and stained. And the bottom of the dress looked wet, like it had been soaked in water. The girl slowly looked up. Her eyes were pale, almost gray, and completely empty. But her voice was soft, almost sad. You found my bracelet. Daniel's hands shook. You're Lily? The girl nodded. Yes. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm tightly. Daniel? But Lily ignored her. She looked directly at Daniel. Did you read the message? Daniel swallowed. Yes. Good. Lily looked relieved. Then she said something that made Daniel's stomach drop. Because the house doesn't like when people find things. A loud bang echoed somewhere downstairs. Then another. And another. Doors slamming violently. The house groaned like the wood was twisting. Laura whispered, "What's happening?" Lily turned her head toward the floor, listening. Then she said quietly, "She's angry." Daniel frowned. Who? Lily slowly pointed toward the ceiling. Her. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the attic above them. Something heavy slammed against the floor. Again. And again. Boom. 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 The ceiling cracked slightly. Dust fell into the room. Laura screamed, "We need to get out." Daniel grabbed the bedroom door handle again. Still locked. But Lily spoke calmly. "You can't leave." Daniel looked at her. "What do you mean?" Lily's expression became sad again. Everyone who moves here tries to leave. And no one can. Daniel felt anger rising through his fear. That's not true. We'll break a window. We'll call the police. Lily shook her head slowly. That's what the last family said. Laura whispered, last family? Lily looked at her. They lasted 6 days. Daniel's chest tightened. What happened to them? Lily didn't answer right away. Instead, she pointed slowly toward the wall behind Daniel. The wall that had been scratching earlier. Daniel turned slowly and noticed something new. The wallpaper had begun peeling away, revealing something underneath. Dark shapes, lines, words, hundreds of words, carved into the wood behind the wall. Names, dozens of names. Laura stepped closer. Oh my God, each name had a number next to it. Like this. Martin, day 12 inches. Sarah, day 31 inches. Thomas, day 5 inches. And near the bottom of the wall, the newest carving, still fresh, still sharp. 3 names. Daniel, Laura, Emily. And next to them, the numbers had already started.
Day 2.
Laura began to cry. Daniel looked at Lily. Who did this? Lily's face slowly turned toward the ceiling again, and her voice dropped to a whisper. The woman upstairs. At that exact moment, something began walking across the attic floor. Slow, heavy, not like a child, not like a person. Each step made the ceiling creak violently. Step, step, step. Directly above Emily's bedroom, Lily's expression filled with fear. And she whispered one final warning. She's awake. Then the attic door upstairs burst open, and something began running down the hallway. The footsteps in the hallway above were not human. They were too heavy, too fast. Boom, boom, boom. Something was running across the ceiling directly above Emily's bedroom. Laura grabbed Daniel's arm so tightly her nails dug into his skin. What is that? Daniel didn't answer, because he already knew, or at least, he was starting to understand. Lily stood perfectly still in the middle of the room. Her pale eyes were fixed on the ceiling. Her expression had changed. The sadness was gone. Now there was only fear. Real fear. She knows, Lily whispered. Daniel looked at her. Knows what? That you found my bracelet. The running upstairs suddenly stopped. The house fell silent again. Completely silent, like the entire building was holding its breath. Then something began moving slowly above them. Dragging. Scraape. Scraape. Like a heavy object being pulled across the attic floor. Laura covered her mouth. Oh God? Daniel whispered to Lily. Who is she? Lily answered without looking away from the ceiling. She lived here a long time ago. Before the house changed, the dragging sound moved toward the attic ladder. Scraape. Scraape. Then, creak. The attic ladder began unfolding slowly. Daniel's stomach dropped. No. The wooden ladder slid down piece by piece, until it hit the hallway floor with a loud thud. Silence. Then, something began climbing down. Not walking. Climbing. Slowly. Each movement made the ladder groan under the weight. Creak. 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 Laura whispered, Daniel, please. But he couldn't move. He couldn't even breathe. The thing climbing down stopped halfway, and a long arm appeared through the attic opening. Pale, thin, and far too long to belong to a normal person. Then a second arm appeared. And slowly, a head. The woman's hair hung down over her face like wet rope. Her skin looked gray, rotten, and her neck bent at an unnatural angle. Daniel felt his entire body freeze. The woman twisted her head slowly toward Emily's bedroom, even though the door was closed. Even though she shouldn't have known they were inside. Her voice came out like a dry whisper. You found her. Laura screamed. Daniel grabbed the door handle again and pulled as hard as he could. Still locked. The woman began climbing down faster now. Her movements were jerky. Wrong. Like her bones didn't work the way they should. Lily suddenly stepped forward. No. The woman stopped instantly. Her head snapped toward Lily. Slowly, very slowly, she tilted her head to one side. The woman's voice became angry. You should have stayed quiet. Lily shook her head. You killed them. The air in the room suddenly turned freezing cold. The woman climbed the rest of the way down the ladder. Her feet hit the hallway floor with a soft thud. But Daniel noticed something horrifying. Her feet were twisted backward. She began walking toward Emily's bedroom. Step, step, step. Each step sounded wet, like something dripping on the wood floor. Laura backed away from the door. What does she want? Lily answered quietly. More people. The bedroom door suddenly began shaking violently. Bang, bang, bang. The woman slammed her hands against the other side. Her voice now sounded furious. Open the door. Daniel shoved a dresser in front of the door. The banging became louder. Crack. The wood started splitting. Laura cried, Daniel, we have to get out. But Lily shook her head. There's only one way. Daniel turned to her. What way? Lily pointed toward the closet. To the crawlspace. Daniel looked confused. There's a crawlspace? Lily nodded. Under the house. She can't go there. The banging on the door became violent now. Pieces of wood started breaking. Laura screamed. Daniel. Lily ran to the closet and pulled open the loose floorboard. The dark hole underneath looked deeper than before. Go, Lily said. Daniel helped Laura climb down first. Then he climbed in after her. The space beneath the house was tight, cold, damp, and completely dark. Lily remained above them, standing in the bedroom. Daniel looked up at her. Aren't you coming? Lily shook her head slowly. I can't leave. The bedroom door exploded open behind her. Wood splintered everywhere. The woman rushed into the room, her twisted body moving unnaturally fast. She screamed when she saw Lily. You betrayed me. Lily looked down at Daniel one last time. Her voice was calm again. Find the basement. Daniel frowned. There's no basement. Lily whispered. There is now. Then the closet door slammed shut above them, and the crawlspace went completely dark. But the last thing Daniel heard before the silence returned was the sound of the woman screaming in rage, and Lily whispering one final word. Run. The darkness under the house was suffocating. Daniel could barely breathe. The crawlspace was so tight that he and Laura had to move on their hands and knees. The wooden floor above them creaked with every movement. Laura whispered, her voice shaking, Daniel, where are we? I think we're under the house, he said quietly. But Lily said there's a basement. Laura wiped dirt from her hands. This doesn't look like a basement. It looked more like a tunnel. A long, narrow space stretching into darkness. Behind them, the closet door above had slammed shut. The sounds of the house were faint now, but they could still hear something upstairs. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Searching. The woman. Daniel whispered, we need to move. Laura nodded. They began crawling deeper into the crawlspace. The air smelled terrible. Rotten. Wet. Like something had been trapped there for a long time. After a few minutes, Laura stopped suddenly. Daniel? What? There's something here. Daniel turned his flashlight on again. For some reason, it worked now. The weak beam of light cut through the darkness and revealed something in the dirt. A hand. A human hand, sticking out of the ground. Laura gasped. Oh my God. Daniel crawled closer. The hand was pale, thin, and covered in dry dirt. He pushed the dirt aside carefully, slowly revealing more. An arm, a shoulder, a skull. Daniel froze. It was a skeleton, buried beneath the house. Laura began shaking. Daniel, there's another one. He moved the flashlight, and his heart nearly stopped. There wasn't just one skeleton. There were dozens. Bones scattered across the ground. Some buried, some partially exposed. Small bones, large bones, adults, children. Daniel whispered, this is impossible. Laura looked like she might faint. Those are the people on the wall. Daniel remembered the names carved upstairs. The tallies, the days. They hadn't left the house. They had never escaped. They were still here, under the floor. Then something strange happened. The flashlight flickered, and Daniel noticed something carved into the dirt wall of the crawlspace. Old writing, scratched deeply into the wood. The beam of light revealed the words slowly. She feeds the house. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? Laura pointed at another message carved nearby. This one looked newer, written more clearly. The house grows when she kills. Daniel's stomach turned. You mean? Laura nodded slowly. The house is changing, growing. Daniel thought about the hallway, the attic, the way the rooms felt different already. The crawlspace hadn't been there before. The house was expanding, like it was alive. Suddenly, crack, a loud noise echoed above them. Laura jumped. What was that? Daniel listened carefully. Footsteps again, but not just upstairs. This time, inside the walls. Step, step, step. Something was moving inside the structure of the house itself. Daniel whispered, "That's not possible." Then they heard something else. A voice, very faint, from deeper inside the crawlspace. "Hello?" Laura grabbed Daniel's arm. "Did you hear that?" The voice came again. Weak, desperate. "Is someone there?" Daniel pointed the flashlight forward. The tunnel stretched deeper under the house. And somewhere far ahead, something moved. Laura whispered, "Daniel, someone's alive." The voice called again. "Please help me." Daniel's heart pounded. "Who are you?" he shouted quietly. For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice answered, "I don't know how long I've been here." Laura crawled forward a little. "Are you trapped?" The voice replied, "Yes." Then after a pause, it said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. Just like the others, Daniel crawled faster now. The flashlight beam bounced across the walls. The tunnel opened slightly into a larger space. And that's when they saw him. A man, sitting against the dirt wall. Thin, pale, barely alive. His beard was long. His clothes were torn. He looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. The man raised his head slowly. His eyes widened when he saw them. "You're new." Daniel nodded. "Yes." The man laughed weakly. "You shouldn't have come here." Laura asked quickly, "How long have you been here?" The man thought for a moment. "I stopped counting after day 30. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Day 30? The man nodded slowly. Then he pointed toward the darkness behind them. Back toward the house. His voice turned quiet, terrified. "Did she see you yet?" Daniel whispered, "Yes." The man closed his eyes. Then he said the most horrifying thing Daniel had heard so far. "Then it's already too late." At that exact moment, a loud thud echoed above them, directly overhead, then another, and another, like something massive was crawling across the floor. But this time, the sound wasn't upstairs, it was right above the crawlspace. Inside the house's foundation, something had found them, and the woman's voice echoed faintly through the wood. Soft, hungry, and very close. "Found you." The whisper above them froze the air in the crawlspace. "Found you." Laura covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. The man against the wall closed his eyes slowly. "I told you," he whispered weakly. "She always finds us." Daniel turned off the flashlight immediately. Darkness swallowed the tunnel. "Don't move," Daniel whispered. Above them, something began crawling across the floorboards. Slow, heavy, scrape, scrape, scrape. It sounded like fingernails dragging across wood. Laura's breathing became shaky. Daniel squeezed her hand. "Stay quiet." The crawling sound moved slowly across the ceiling of the crawlspace. Directly over their heads, the woman was searching, listening, waiting. Then suddenly, bang! Something slammed violently against the floor above them. The wood cracked loudly. Dust fell into the crawlspace. The woman screamed in frustration. A horrible, distorted scream that echoed through the entire house. The trapped man whispered quickly, "She knows we're here now." Daniel turned his flashlight back on, but pointed it toward the ground. "We need to move." Laura nodded. "Where?" The man lifted a trembling hand and pointed deeper into the darkness. "There's a way." Daniel looked at him. "You've been down here for weeks. Why didn't you leave?" The man gave a tired, bitter smile. Because I didn't know the way until yesterday. Laura frowned. What changed yesterday? The man answered quietly. The house grew again. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? The man slowly pointed toward the tunnel ahead. That passage wasn't there before. Daniel looked where the man was pointing and realized something terrifying. The tunnel walls ahead looked newer. The dirt had been disturbed, like the house had opened a new path underground. The crawling sound above them moved again. Closer. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Laura whispered urgently, Daniel? We have to go. Daniel helped the weak man stand. The man nearly collapsed. My name is Victor, he said weakly. Daniel nodded. I'm Daniel. This is Laura. Victor looked at them with sad eyes. You shouldn't have brought a child here. Daniel felt a knot tighten in his chest. Emily? Victor's expression darkened. Where is she? Daniel froze. Upstairs. Still in the house. Daniel's heart started racing. We have to go back. Victor grabbed his arm weakly. No. Daniel stared at him. What do you mean no? Victor whispered something that made Daniel's blood run cold. She won't hurt the adults first. Laura's face turned pale. What are you saying? Victor looked down at the dirt floor. She takes the children first. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. No. Victor nodded slowly. That's how she feeds the house. Suddenly, crack. A piece of the floor above them broke open. A long, pale hand burst through the wood. Fingers stretching down into the crawlspace. Searching. Grabbing. Laura screamed quietly. Daniel pulled her away. The hand twisted unnaturally, trying to reach them. Then another hand broke through the wood beside it. And another. The woman was tearing through the floor. Run, Victor shouted. They began crawling as fast as they could. The tunnel twisted deeper under the house. Behind them, wood splintered. The woman's body forced its way through the broken floor. Her scream echoed through the crawlspace. You cannot hide. Her twisted body dropped into the tunnel behind them. And she began crawling. Fast. Too fast. Victor pointed ahead. There. The tunnel suddenly opened into a large underground chamber. Daniel shined the flashlight forward. And froze. It wasn't a crawlspace anymore. It was a basement. A huge one. But it looked wrong. The walls were made of the house's wooden boards. But they were twisted together unnaturally. Like the house had grown downward. In the center of the basement, there was a door. An old wooden door. Standing alone. No walls attached to it. Just a door in the middle of the room. Laura whispered, What is that? Victor's voice trembled. That wasn't here yesterday. Daniel slowly approached it. Something about the door felt important. Like the house itself was focused on it. Behind them, the woman's body twisted out of the tunnel. Her pale eyes locked onto them instantly. Her mouth opened into a horrible smile. Victor shouted, Open the door. Daniel grabbed the handle and pulled. The door creaked open slowly. Darkness waited on the other side. But Daniel could hear something beyond it. Wind. Real wind. Fresh air. Laura gasped. It's outside. Daniel looked back. The woman was crawling toward them rapidly. Her limbs bending at impossible angles. Her voice screeching in rage. You cannot leave. Victor shoved Daniel toward the door. Go. Daniel grabbed Laura's hand. They stepped toward the darkness beyond the door. But just before they crossed through, the woman screamed something that stopped them cold. A single name. Emily. Daniel froze. The woman's smile widened, and she whispered the words that made Daniel's heart stop. She's already mine. Daniel froze in the doorway. Cold air from the outside world touched his face. Freedom was only a few steps away. But the woman's words echoed in his mind. She's already mine. Laura grabbed his arm. Daniel, we have to go. But he couldn't move. Emily was still inside the house. Victor staggered toward the door behind them. Hurry. The woman crawled closer across the basement floor. Her twisted limbs moved like a spider. Her pale eyes never left Daniel. You can leave, she whispered. But the child stays. Daniel stepped back from the doorway. Laura stared at him. Daniel, what are you doing? He looked at her, his eyes filled with fear. I can't leave Emily. Laura began to cry. We'll call the police. They'll come back. Daniel shook his head. You heard Victor. The house changes. By the time anyone comes back, this place could be gone. Laura's hands trembled. Daniel? He took a deep breath. You take Victor and go. Laura's eyes widened. No. Yes. Daniel, I'm not leaving you here. But Daniel stepped away from the door completely. I'm going to get our daughter. Behind him, the woman laughed. A horrible, dry sound. You think you can take her back? Daniel stared at her. I'm not leaving without her. The woman's smile stretched wider. Then the house will keep you too. Laura grabbed Daniel's shirt. Please. Daniel kissed her forehead quickly. Take Emily and run if you find her. Laura shook her head through tears. But Victor grabbed her arm. He's right. Laura looked at him in disbelief. You expect me to leave him? Victor's voice was quiet. If you stay, all three of you die. The woman's body twisted violently. She screamed in anger. No one leaves. She rushed toward them. Victor shoved Laura through the doorway. Go. Laura stumbled outside into the cold night air. Victor followed her. But Daniel stayed behind. The moment Laura crossed the doorframe, the door slammed shut, disappearing into the darkness of the basement. Daniel was alone in the house again. The woman slowly turned toward him. Her gray eyes burned with hatred. You chose the child. Daniel clenched his fists. Where is she? The woman tilted her head. Upstairs. Her smile returned. Where Lily died. Daniel ran. Up the basement stairs. Through the tunnel. Back toward the crawlspace. The house felt different now. Angrier. The walls creaked loudly. The floorboards shifted under his feet. Like the house was alive. And it knew he had come back. He climbed through the crawlspace opening into Emily's bedroom. The room was dark. Completely silent. Emily? He whispered. No answer. Then he heard something. A soft humming. Coming from the hallway. Daniel stepped into the hallway slowly. At the end of the hall, Emily stood facing the wall. Her back to him. Emily. She stopped humming. But she didn't turn around. Daddy? Daniel rushed toward her. Yes, sweetheart, it's me. But before he could reach her, another voice spoke. From behind Emily. Cold, soft, and familiar. You came back. Daniel froze. Lily stepped out of the darkness behind Emily. Her pale eyes looked tired. But calm. She brought the child here, Lily said quietly. Daniel knelt beside Emily. Are you okay? Emily nodded slowly. She wanted me to play. Daniel hugged her tightly. It's okay now. But Lily shook her head. No. Daniel looked up. What do you mean? Lily pointed slowly toward the end of the hallway. The attic ladder was already open. And something was slowly climbing down. The woman. Her twisted body emerging from the attic opening. Her eyes locked onto Emily. She belongs to the house now. Emily began to cry. Daddy? Daniel held her closer. You're not taking my daughter. The woman stepped onto the hallway floor. Her voice became a horrible scream. Everything here belongs to me. The house shook violently. Walls cracking. Lights flickering. Lily stepped forward slowly. She's tied to the house. Daniel asked quickly. How do we stop her? Lily looked toward the attic. Then back at him. Her expression was sad again. The same way she stopped me. Daniel understood immediately. No. Lily nodded slowly. The house needs a soul. The woman rushed forward across the hallway. Her limbs snapping unnaturally. Daniel grabbed Emily and ran toward the staircase. But the stairs collapsed instantly. Wood breaking apart like it had rotted away. The woman laughed. You can't escape. But Lily stepped between them. Facing the woman. You took my life. The woman's smile faded. And now I'm taking the house back. The hallway lights exploded. Glass shattering everywhere. The house screamed around them. And Lily began to glow faintly in the darkness. The woman suddenly looked afraid. No. Lily's voice echoed through the house. You don't belong here anymore. The walls began cracking open. The floor shook violently. The house itself seemed to be tearing apart. And Lily turned to Daniel one last time. Take Emily. Daniel grabbed his daughter and ran. The front door suddenly appeared at the end of the hallway. A door that hadn't been there before. He kicked it open. Cold night air rushed inside. Behind him, the house roared. The woman screamed, and Lily's voice whispered softly through the collapsing walls. Go. Daniel ran into the darkness with Emily in his arms. And the house collapsed behind them. Daniel didn't stop running until the house disappeared behind the trees. Emily clung tightly to his neck, crying softly. The cold night air burned in his lungs. But he didn't slow down. Not until he saw headlights in the distance. Laura. She was standing beside Victor near the road. The moment she saw Daniel and Emily, she ran toward them. Emily. Laura wrapped her arms around their daughter, holding her tightly. You're okay? You're okay? Emily nodded weakly. Daddy came back. Laura looked at Daniel with tears in her eyes. I thought I lost you. Daniel shook his head slowly. It's over. Victor looked past them toward the forest. Toward where the house had been. But now, there was nothing there. No lights. No roof. No windows. Just darkness. Victor whispered, the house is gone. Daniel turned to look. The place where the house once stood was empty. Completely empty. Like it had never existed at all. No ruins. No wood. No debris. Nothing. Laura frowned. That's impossible. Victor shook his head slowly. That house has been disappearing for decades. Daniel looked at him. What do you mean? Victor leaned against the car, exhausted. I found newspaper records when I was trapped there. Every 30 or 40 years, the house appears again. Laura whispered, appears. Victor nodded. It traps new families. Feeds on them. Then disappears again. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. And Lily? Victor looked at him. You saw her? Daniel nodded. She helped us escape. Victor's expression turned sad. Then she finally did what she couldn't do in life. Laura looked confused. What happened to her? Victor spoke quietly. She was the first victim. The wind moved softly through the trees. Victor continued. Back in 1987, a woman owned that house. She kidnapped children, kept them trapped inside. Daniel felt sick. The bracelet? Victor nodded. Lily was the first child she took. But something went wrong. Laura whispered, what happened? Victor looked toward the forest again. Lily died in the house. And something changed. Daniel felt Emily tighten her arms around him. Victor continued speaking. The woman tried to hide the bodies under the house. But after Lily died, the house began changing. Rooms appearing. Walls moving. People hearing voices. Daniel remembered the crawlspace. The bones. The names on the wall. The house trapped her too, Victor said. The woman couldn't leave anymore. She became part of it. Daniel whispered, the woman upstairs. Victor nodded. That was her. For a moment, no one spoke. Only the sound of wind through the trees. Then Emily said something quietly. Something that made all three adults freeze. Lily said goodbye. Daniel looked down at her. What? Emily pointed toward the forest. She said she's tired. Laura whispered, Emily? Who? Emily answered simply. The girl in the white dress. Daniel slowly turned toward the trees. The night was quiet, empty, but for just a moment, he thought he saw something between the branches. A small figure, standing in the distance, watching them. Then the wind moved through the trees again. And the figure disappeared. Victor opened the car door. Let's get out of here. Daniel nodded. They got into the car. Victor started the engine. And they drove away from the forest. Away from the place where the house had stood. Miles down the road, Emily had finally fallen asleep in the backseat. Laura leaned her head against Daniel's shoulder. You saved her. Daniel stared out the window. But something still felt wrong. Something he couldn't explain. Because just before they left, he thought he heard something. Very faint. Very far away. A whisper carried on the wind. A child's voice. Soft. Sad. Thank you. Daniel closed his eyes. And hoped. The house would never return again. But deep in the forest, where the ground was empty and silent, the dirt slowly shifted, cracked, And beneath the earth, something wooden moved, a single board pushing upward through the soil. Then another, and another. Far below the ground, in darkness no one could see, a faint scratching sound began again. Scratch, 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 and somewhere deep inside the earth, a door slowly creaked open.